Hello, sorry, I'm a little bit late. I put in the wrong details to the live link, but I'm here now. You can join, if you wanted to join the Zoom meeting, you can join it now. It's back up and live and ready and working. Yeah, nice. Nice to see you all. I hope you're having a beautiful afternoon. Okay, we begin. Okay, it's working, I believe. Very good. So we start. I was a little insecure then. Yeah. So the title of the talk today is How to Actually Be Happy. A clue, it's not about solving your problems. I feel like I've done this title before. It gets recycled. Yeah, so if I have done this title before, then yeah, you understand why. If you're a long-time viewer, it's hard to find variations of titles when you've been doing talks for 12 years online, I think. I know maybe I've been doing the Zooms for 10 years. But yeah. So, yes. So just a bit of a disclaimer before we begin. I'm going really Australian, I can feel that. Just a reminder that these talks, I see these talks as meditations. I don't really see it as me giving information, although I am giving information. But the information that I give is widely available on the internet, and a lot of non-duality teachers speak about it, and maybe are even more eloquent than I am, and find better ways of describing it or putting it in context. What I see happening here is a meditation that I'm inviting you into stillness. That's originally what satsang means, is an invitation into truth, and truth to me is stillness. Yeah. So, and this isn't therapy. A lot of people get that a bit muddled and think that this is therapy. And it's not. Yeah. Obviously, there's working on the person, and there's a talking about the person. Yeah, there is stuff that will be therapeutic, but it's not therapy. And I think it's important to distinguish that so you can really see the objective of what satsang is, or meeting in truth is. It's an invitation to stillness and to silence. And sometimes people mix the two together, and I'm not judging or saying that's wrong, but just particularly here, and I mix the two together, sorry. But just to be clear that I see these talks, with my intention as an invitation to silence. I don't see them as me doing therapy or imparting information that you've not known before, although I'm sure that happens. So my suggestion, even though my teacher would say there can never be prescription, there can only be a description of something that may or may not happen. My suggestion would be to try to listen to me, not from the mind, but from a deeper place. And that might be really confusing, and hopefully the talks can enlighten you on what that means and help guide you to that place. And it's not a mental place. Some people might say it's like from the heart, and sort of, but I would just go that it's a bit further than the heart. So just encourage to go even further than that. Yeah. So that is the disclaimer before the talk. And then the next disclaimer is that non-duality is a really radical subject that Westerners really aren't inclined to and aren't brought up with this idea. Where in the East, the idea that God is all, God is everything, is just the norm. It's the way they see life is, or they might not see life that way, but it's what they're brought up with. So like we're brought up with the idea that God is somebody that lives up on a cloud. That's what I used to think. And looks down on us and judges us for good or bad. And also guides us and helps us and has this way of living. In the East, it tends to be the opposite, that God is the creator of all things and God is you. It's such a different mentality. And in the West, try to look at it through logic and science and understanding. And that's okay, but but it has to go deeper than that. It has to go to something else. Yeah. So when Westerners hear this subject, they get it all confuddled and muddled because it's such an alien concept that God is all. God is up there and judging me, or he doesn't exist, and all there is science and facts. So the title is a little bit of a con. How to be happy. It's something that Ramesh Balsekar and Roger Castillo, my teachers, would talk about. How to be happy in daily life. But they talk about the subject from a different angle. So from the angle that I speak about it, it would be, the first question would be, who would be happy? Who is the person that believes it's happy? And it's so interesting because there's such an alien concept to Western minds, but that's such a normal concept in the East. It's funny, right? Or a more normal concept. I'm just waiting for the words to come. One trusts that they will. I suspect that a lot of people in our society are deeply suffering. But they don't know they're deeply suffering because they're fast asleep. They're dreaming a reality. And in their dream, for most people, it's too painful to acknowledge that they're suffering. So they tell themselves stories about a different reality that's happening. So when they're deeply stressed and deeply disturbed, they're telling themselves a story of something else. It could be about how the neighbor's deeply disturbed. Could be about how other people are bad people, or could be about wanting to save this planet, like that they're deeply upset about the way people treat this planet and they're trying to think of ways to save the planet. And there's no acknowledgement that there is deep discomfort and suffering that's appearing in them. It's projected outwards, and then they're telling a narrative of something else. And if they were to become present for a moment and not be lost in their dreamscape, they would be presented with incredibly uncomfortable sensations and feelings in the body. Because there's been many years of suppressing that, denying that, and living in their dream of what's happening rather than what's actually happening. So it's like they've got a dream and then they've got this body tagging on that they're completely unconscious of. I was in my early 20s when I came in contact with Buddhism, maybe in my late teens actually, but I didn't start practicing till really practicing. So there was a knowledge of it, but really practicing until my early 20s. And when I first started meditating and becoming aware of my body, I was shocked at how much pain I was in when I was, relatively young. If you'd asked me before that, I would have always said I'm happy. Even though, yeah, there are lots of things that indicated I wasn't happy, I would have always insisted I was happy. Even there could be bad days where you're like, oh no, it's all shit. But most of the time I would have insisted I was happy, generally. But then when I started practicing meditation and becoming aware of my body, it was horrifying to realize how much pain my body was in and how much discrepancy there was between my narrative of what was happening and the experience in the body. So, for example, the narrative would be that I'm not angry, but my body would be furious. My narrative would be that I feel happy, but my body would be anxious. And that discrepancy was huge between my narrative of what I wanted to be, even though I wasn't even aware that I was wanting to be something. It was just the narrative I lived in, the dream I lived in, and then the actuality of what was happening. And my life was leaking, you know. I'd be in relationship and get angry for very little reason, have blames, you know, like cause problems here or that, you know, my whole narrative was leaking. You know, it was like trying to patch up a leaking boat, you know, with no patches. So you're in a boat that's sinking and you're quickly trying to patch things up. So it wasn't like I could maintain these ideas of what I thought I was, good person or happy person or creative person or nice person or altruistic person, because I couldn't patch it up, because there was the story of what I wanted to be, and then there was the reality of what my body was feeling. And so it was shocking. And even when I was practicing meditation, there was a want to block that out. And even though I'd done therapy and was doing therapy while practicing Buddhism and different types of therapies, there was still a want to block that out, to not really be honest with what my body was feeling. You know, if someone said, "How are you?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm great." And my body would be like, "You're fucking awful. You feel like a wreck. Your heart chakra is burning because you feel really abandoned and unloved." Yeah. Even in spiritual groups, you know, it'd be hard to be honest. And there wasn't always a consciousness of it because there was a blocking that happened. It wasn't until I lived with Roger Castillo for 3.5 years where he radically pointed out my contradictions, that there was going more and more into the body and actually understanding what was going on. And that this dream of me wasn't me at all. And also the sensations, the emotions, the feelings that were happening in the body wasn't me. But it goes through stages, you know. You first begin to realize the lie of your dream imagination of yourself. And then you become more present to actually the responses in your body and just the innocence of them, that, you know, you didn't make them happen. There's something that's formed over many years, maybe even thousands of years. It's also the acceptance of them. And there's the working on them to change them and release these energies and the stories. And yeah, all these different processes that you go through. But my point is that I suspect that most of people in society are really suffering and they don't know they're suffering because they're telling themselves a different story. But if you pull out in front of them by accident, then you'll see like the mask slip and great rage, how do you know, like the rage will come out. Yeah. Or if you don't validate their story, the rage will come out. Or if you don't cover up their shame, the rage will come out. And I suspect it's getting worse in society because we're living in a very poisonous environment. It's beautiful and it's divine, but poisonous is in like, you know, we've evolved really quickly and we created all these things that we didn't really know the side effect of. So a lot of our environment is very plasticky. We're drinking plastic, which changes the structure of our body, and it's mostly changing it so quickly that there's discomfort from that area as well. Because the body and the feelings and the emotions and the thinking is all so deeply connected. And then we've got mass farming, which means that we've got a lack of nutrients in the vegetables and the food we eat. So this is like double whammy. There is the story, the illusion that we're living in. And then there's also the fact that our environment has changed so radically in the last 100, 200 years. And we've not really known the effect of all the chemicals that we've created and all the alchemy that we've done on our systems. So, yeah, there's been a lot of growth of autoimmune diseases, cancer in the last years. So let's go to why people suffer. So from non-duality perspective and from Buddhist perspective as well, the reason in why you suffer is because there is an illusory person that believes that happiness is found in a dream themselves. So what I mean is that the person is dreaming of themselves. So they're not actually here right now, present to what's happening. They're dreaming. So there's like a veil that's appearing and they're dreaming a reality. So they're not sitting looking at me. They're looking at me through a dream of themselves. And the dream of themselves is something that is often called the seeker. And the seeker is dreaming themselves, and then from dreaming themselves and in their imagination and their dream, they're seeking to achieve things and avoid things. So the Buddhists would call it craving. And they're believing that these things will bring them happiness or bring them unhappiness. And that's what most people are doing. So they've got this body with the apparent emotions and then also what's happening with our environment, like the effect that our environment is happening on us. And then so that's changing. And then they've got their imagination of themselves on top of that. And that imagination is being affected by the body, but they're not conscious of that. It's really all connected. And in this imagination of themselves, they're always believing that in the future, there will be this rest. There will be this feeling of home. If I'm loved, if I'm appreciated, if I'm successful, if I have money, if I find a community, if I become better, if I'm nicer to my partner, if I find the perfect partner, if I have kids, if I exercise more, if I do yoga more, if I meditate more. And they're dreaming of this future which they're gonna arrive at, and then they're working to get to this future. They're working to get to this imagination of paradise. And that can have some positive effects, like the imagination of all these positive things can have positive effects in the body, and it can send good energies through the body. This hope that they're going to arrive. It's better than being in fear, than always afraid of all these things that are going to catch up with you and kill you and eat you and destroy you. But it's still this dream. There's not actually presence. There's not actually truth and being who you truly are, which is presence, beingness, what is. So there's still this dream, this illusion that whole of society are hypnotized by. And then people go and find friends that validate their reality. So if their reality is very fear-bound, they'll find other fear-bound people, or they'll find people that are trying to save them. And they'll live in this mental reality, and then they'll have friends that are seemingly coming into their mental, imagined reality, validating their story or disagreeing with their story or whatever it is, but all the same supporting the story. Saying, yeah, that's true. That is who you are. And that is what you've got to do to be happy. And that's what you've got to avoid to not be unhappy. And never, ever, ever, well, actually, I'm sure sometimes, but most of the time in Western culture, it's suggested that actually it's a coming out of the dream that's the happiness, that's the freedom. So it's not found in this dream of you, an achievement, but it's actually coming out of it. And coming out of it is what in non-duality would call coming home. And that would be becoming present again. So the Buddhists would say, live in the moment, whereas maybe the non-dualists would be more seeing that who you are is consciousness and not the person, or no self, or nothing and everything. Doesn't really matter the words, but it's a coming out of this dream of you, and that you are going to arrive somewhere in the future. And discovering that what you are isn't limited, isn't something in time, and isn't separate from everything that's happening. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal, the realization of what you are. It's the biggest thing there is. Yeah. I mean, in the East, they would just call it God. But we have issues here with individualism and narcissism and the word God and all those things. So it's a difficult word to go in and use, God. Yes. So how to be happy? Well, if we say happiness is freedom, it's not in a feeling, in an event, in any form of imagination of you. So not in a sensory experience, not in getting something, not in avoiding something, not in becoming good, not in getting rid of your past, not in correcting all your mistakes. It's not in any of that. And that is so juicy. Even people on this path for many years still get sucked into it being a sensation, a feeling, an idea. All of those come and go. To wake up from the dream of you, you have to go beyond the sensory world, beyond all that's sensed, and beyond all that's dreamt. And you is dreamt. Who are you right now without imagination and thought? So I come from predominantly the background of non-duality, but I was practicing Buddhist for 5 or 6 years, I don't know how long. So there was so much Buddhist input as well. Recently, I found my original Buddhist teacher's tapes on Audible. So when I was younger, I used to go to the Buddhist center, the local Buddhist center, and they had a library of audio tapes, cassette tapes. And yeah, it wasn't even CDs, it was cassettes. And because of my dyslexia, having this resource at the Buddhist center was like phenomenal. And I was obsessive. I have this part of me that when I fixate on something, I'm like, So they had like a whole massive wall of all of these cassettes, of all these talks that Sangharakshita had ever given. And I kind of forget, about this. I listened to all of them methodically. And so recently I found him on Audible. Someone's put some of his cassettes on Audible. And it was so beautiful to hear his voice again. So many years ago, there was this obsession of listening. Yeah, so why was there a speaking about this? It was to do with from non-duality perspective versus Buddhist perspective. So when I was learning Buddhism, they would point a lot more to being present, to you being present. And that's beautiful. And that's got relevance. And they would talk a lot about focusing the mind and compassion and love. And that's so beautiful, such beautiful teaching. But then eventually there was this pull towards non-duality and they speak differently. I feel like it's the same. You just have to listen with like dislocated ears to hear the meaning of it. It's so beautiful, all these teachings. I mean, what grace that they came to humankind. Um, yeah. So from a non-duality perspective, and this is what more resonated with me after a period. I couldn't have heard this at the beginning though. I needed that Buddhist introduction. But what began to resonate with me is this pointing that I am consciousness and not the person. And I know for all those people that have been listening for many years and are devout non-dualists, they'll be like, you're not consciousness, you're emptiness. And even in Buddhism, they say that too. But you start off with the teaching of consciousness. And then for those that have been listening for longer, you then begin to realize that consciousness is not a thing, doesn't exist, and yet it's all things. And your mind gets blown up. But we start with the teaching of consciousness. And that's a relief for a teacher to start with the consciousness. It's so hard to point out this subject because most people that are listening, most probably not the regular audience, but anyone that's new here or fairly new here, they're listening to me through their dream. So they're not actually listening to me. They're listening to me through their dream. So it's getting interpreted in all types of funky ways. So teaching, the consciousness teaching is a gradual opening. And what's so superb and ingenious about the consciousness teaching is the first thing that it teaches is recognizing, so moving to a witness place where you recognize that something is watching thoughts, feelings, sensations, and everything that's happening. Everything. And this is called a moving back to witnessing. So there is a noticing that everything you think, even the doer and the one that's moving the personal awareness, is being watched by something. And this isn't something I can point out for you. This is something you have to investigate for yourself. Who is that? What is that? Where is that? So there has to be a deep investigation. And this is where, Buddhist meditation training can come in really helpful to really investigate, to really go in. And yes, in. And eventually, yes, we realize there's no in or out. Go in and you begin to investigate, what is watching. So a thought can't be watching. So when a thought says, I am watching, that thought is being watched. So who is watching that? It's so ingenious, this teaching. So the one that says, I am enlightened, it's being watched. And the reason that you know it's being watched is because it's being seen. There's something that sees it. What's appearing in the dream is not the seeing, it's not like that thought is seeing itself. There has to be something prior to it to know that that thought is appearing. I used to think, and I didn't really know I thought this, but it sort of became apparent that I thought in order to experience, I had to think. That's not true because there was experiencing before thinking happened, and there's many times when you're not thinking and there's experiencing. So what is it that's prior to the thinking, the feelings, the sensations? What is it? Who is it? Well, what will begin to happen for lots of people is a movement back to witnessing, to watching the thoughts and feelings. And I mean, there's still thought involved in there. It's still mental abstraction, but you're watching it, but there's a separation from it. Before, you were the story, you were your thoughts, you were your feelings. But when the witnessing begins to happen, you begin to know that that's not true. That's not who you are. And you might not even notice that the witnessing is beginning to happen. It's just now that I'm reflecting it back to you. You're like, oh, yes, I've done witnessing for many years. But there is something deeper than witnessing, because witnessing is still in a mental realm. It's still the mind witnessing in a way, but it's detached from all the thoughts, feelings, and ideas. It's watching it from a place. And then once that begins to settle, and for some people, that can take a lifetime. And for some people, it's like really quick. It takes days or weeks, years. It's so different for everyone. And just don't judge the race on other people. When I was growing up, I had severe dyslexia, and I was put in an education system where I was taught to judge my progress by everyone around me. And it's an impossibility. Dyslexic people learn differently. So just don't judge. If it's 50 years you've been doing it, what a gift. And that's incredibly quickly. If you look at the whole scape of humanity and life and humans being identified. Yes. So then once witnessing's happened, then the funky stuff really begins. The funky stuff. The funky chicken. So what can begin to happen is energetic awakenings or Kundalini awakenings or disappearances where there is a movement into a big consciousness. The big consciousness is not an abstraction of the mind. It is there prior to the mind. Sometimes it happens for people and they begin to have like lucid dreaming. It sometimes appears as an emptiness. And sometimes it appears as great love. So there begins to be a movement to the big consciousness. And this can come with ecstatic bliss, joy. It can be incredibly scary. And this is called the disidentification from self. This is like the big waking up. And there is a deep knowing of a home and who you are beyond anything that appears in this world. And eventually, there is such a deep going into this consciousness, going far, far back into it, that this consciousness becomes empty and full. It's like a bridge that disappears, like an invisible bridge that disappears, and it's totally empty and full simultaneously. It's totally still and in movement. And this is what God is. This can have profound energetic movements on the body. It can create intense fears, intense energetic expression, intense bliss, as there is a going back into that. And then after there's a stabilization in that, then there's the process of the human body embodying that more and more, which I see that as endless process. Yeah. And to me, that is true happiness. And it's not about solving any goddamn problem. It's not about getting out of debt or sorting out your relationship. It's a totally inward, personal movement that's nothing to do with the phenomena world and the appearances. Yeah. And that is all I have to say on that. Yeah. So you're welcome to join these Sunday talks and ask me questions through Telegram. There's a Telegram group. You can find out more on my website. You have to identify it yourself, so it's a nice, secure group. And there's not just random people coming in and being rude and abusive against the subject or me or each other. And you can also ask questions through the Zoom group. And in the Zoom group, in the Zoom, if you ask a question and you speak, it won't be your video or your name shown, it will just be your audio. So if you're in Zoom and you'd like to ask a question, you can put your hand up. And in Telegram, you can just write the question at any moment. And yeah, so Zoom, just have to back to Zoom there. Yeah, so if you want to ask anything in Zoom, just pop your hand up. And let me just check it's in focus mode. Yeah, it's in focus mode, so you won't be shown. And if you want to go into the Zoom link's in the Telegram group, you have to be signed in to Zoom. There always has to be a security measure. It's signed in. So the first question, so I try my best to keep people's names anonymous. So you're welcome in the Telegram group to not change your Telegram ID, but to change your name to help, in case I do reveal a name. So yeah, I try my best, but it's hard not to say people's names. You want to call people by their names. Yeah. So you can say my name. Isn't there a song that says that? You can say my name. That's not my name. Yeah, that's not my name. That's the song I did. Even though one understands and continues to know more and more the nature of non-dual reality, it seems tricky to implement it into everyday life. How do you suggest to live the truth on a daily basis, especially in such a world of duality, with love and gratitude? Yeah, it's tricky, eh? Because once you begin to go deeper and deeper into this, you're then living and working in a very separate society that has no language for this. If you lived in the East, there would be a language for this. You could say, yeah, there would. Everyone has a language for this. It's so prevalent in the societies. Well, not everyone. I say these extremes sometimes. I mean, a lot of people. Yeah. Whereas here, it's now becoming a bit more well known, something like mindfulness or the idea of positive thinking. But the truth of this subject is so hidden. So, there's going to be a movement away from this society. There's going to be, more than likely, some form of withdrawal from it. Because, going out and socializing with people that are totally identified in their dream is crazy. making, you're like, this isn't real. How can I relate to this person? That's completely lost in their dream of themselves. There's many stages, where you try to gaslight yourself or talk yourself into it because there's attachment to that old world and there's an attachment to society and people. But there's going to be, like there is a breaking away from yourself, there's going to be a breaking away from others and a movement into complete aloneness, which is very scary from the personal perspective, but from the absolute, it's home. And there's still gonna, when that happens more and more, you're still gonna have to maneuver in society, but there'll be more detachment from it. And they'll be learning more tricks of how to deal with it and how to maneuver around it. But it's not easy. I had this shift 12 years ago, and before that I had lots of awakenings, and still there is a working out how to live in this society. Yeah, it's very identified. Some Bhakti teachers, they would say a beautiful practice to do is seeing God in everything. So, you go to the supermarket and there's lots of suffering people all around you that are lost in illusion. And there's the practice of every movement they do, every bit of anger and gesture is God, is the divine. To hold the top up while bending over to get a tissue. Women can relate to that. Men are like, what? What's she doing? Like you're just gently pressing your heart. You just so intuitively learn these tricks. When you say happiness is beyond the senses, I understand this as being without knowledge, memory, and meaning. I come to this nothing, and in that nothing, a thought arises. How do I function in society like this? Can you explain why this is still happening? Because most probably because there's an idea of how you have to function in society, and there's not the radical acceptance yet of not being able to fully function. Yeah, not being able to talk all these certain conversations and socialize and be on the phone all the time and then working on the internet all the time, and that this isn't possible. So then you have to ask yourself, what is it that I'm afraid to let go of? What is the still holding on to? One moment. Khaleesi wants out. I think I would just visit the toilet while she wants out. Yes. So, yeah, what is it that's, what blocks are there in the mind? You have to be something, empathy, compassion, and seeing, these thin illusions that arise, these thin karmas. It begins to get very subtle. And just remember that the nothingness has to be accompanied with the love, the everything. Hello. Yes, there was just a brief disconnection. Yeah, is it still streaming? Yeah, there's not this, not that. So that's what I think they mean by the concentration, they're going deep into that. And then there has to be the love. So the deep concentration, not this and that, is the netty, is the nothing, nothing. And then it has to be accompanied with love, and they come together. You move to the consciousness, and then the consciousness sort of disappears, there's nothing that's conscious of, yet there is experiencing, but it's like the consciousness becomes a bridge, and then there's nothing and everything. And the everything side is the love side. And that's really important to have them both together like that. The nothing and the everything. So the consciousness you can see as a bridge, there's always awakeness, there's always a knowing, but it's not conscious of. And as you go into it, they come together. So there's nothing at the back side of consciousness and everything at the front side, but it comes. And then it's love and emptiness. So Nisargadatta Maharaj would say, to know I am everything is love. To know I am nothing is wisdom. And in between my life unfolds. So beautiful. Yeah. So I'm just going to carry on with the same person. Just there's a few questions in between, but just because they might have replied to what I was saying, and it's good to carry on. If Ivan, the character, is dreaming about itself, Ivan can't wake up because it is the dream. So that which is aware of the dream is the dream, and the dream simultaneously. Is this correct? Oh my goodness. Hang on. That's so complex. Let me go. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to think. I speak, but I'm not thinking when I speak. It's just like coming out. It's just, and then when I have to concentrate, Ivan can't wake up because it is a dream. So Ivan is a dream, yes. So that which is aware of the dream is the dream and the dreamer simultaneously. Is this correct? Yes. And is beyond the dream too. Yeah. Yeah, thanks. If you have any follow-up, then please write in. So Vera says I can say her name. Thank you, Vera. What if you know all this and you just cannot believe it's available to you? Yeah, so the person in the dream, so Vera in the dream believes it's not available to her. And that most probably is like a deep feeling in the heart chakra of feeling abandoned and left out. And that will be related to, her past karma, her past history. So maybe in childhood or in last lives, there was a feeling of abandonment that you're left out from the group and it's not available to you. And then this feeling presents itself, and then the story arises, and then it's believed, and then the attention is following that story in time. It's like there's a close-up of the camera on Vera, who feels like it's not available to her, and then the emotions that come along with it. And then she'll meet people that validate it, and that's what the focus is. And the desire is to feel like it's available to you, maybe. Or maybe it's to feel like yeah, my connection keeps going. My apologies, everybody. It's back again. Yeah, so I'll carry on. So Vera feels like she's she's desiring in a way in her story to, the desire is to feel that you belong and that it's available for you. Or the desire is the opposite, because desires go like this. The desire is the opposite, to feel like it's not available to you, because both of those are matching the story of you. And the most important desire is to keep you going in your story. And then it's like the personal awareness camera zooms into that, and there's no witnessing that happens. There's just a zooming into that story and a belief in that story. And then the story is going along in that manner. Yeah. And the more intense that emotion comes, the less space there is. So the more zooming is in that story is. So what's got to happen is there's got to be an acknowledgement of that desire. There can be an emotional release or an exploration of that. But the most important thing is the acknowledgement and the realization when it's appearing and seeing that it's not true. And then moving the attention back to witnessing. I'm sure you're already doing witnessing. So witnessing it rather than being it. So movement back to that. And you can do body work to try and release it, or emotional work to try and release those old stories. But you also want to do this witnessing of moving away, that's not me, that's not my truth. Who I am is witnessing. In that moment, you're the witness. You're witness. That's not the truth. The truth is your emptiness and fullness. But you're going back to this place of witnessing. I am witnessing. That's my truth. And then what will happen is that energy will begin to dissipate, and the interest in that will begin to dissipate. What you might also need to do when it's happening is realize what is your true desire in that moment. To be that story of somebody that is abandoned, that doesn't fit into the group, or to wake up. So also re-acknowledging what the desire is. My desire here is to wake up, and this will help that movement back to witnessing. If the desire is to get validation and to feel like you're part of the group, then that is the where the camera will follow. That is what will happen. That is the seeking that will transpire. But you're trying to break the seeking. And I say all of this with the big disclaimer that that is not somebody doing something. This is a description of what might happen. And it might seemingly happen because there has been this talk about it. But it's not a prescription, because ultimately you aren't the doer and you can't do. That is a dream too. But that doesn't mean that the activity of doing stops. Well, you feel like a dream character, it feels like your action. And it feels like your dream. Yeah. Yes, that's confusing. And that's an apparent stage. And then through doing this repetitively, and this might be, many years of doing it, but through doing it, then there is a deeper and deeper going in and seeing beyond all form, all feeling, all thought. But there's got to be this breaking of the story following. The Buddhists would say, call it being present. But then as it goes deeper, it's who is present. Who? Yeah, I saw BC raised his hand before Christ. But I know who that is. And he's asked many questions. And I'm just going to, I will come to you, but I'm going to first finish the questions in Zoom. But you can keep your hand up to remind me. Yeah. If you've got any comments on that. Oh, Vera says, so beautiful. Thank you, Lisa. Oh, thank you, Vera. It's really you speaking, because I'm not outside of your perception, and there's not really somebody there listening to me speak. So it's really, in the ultimate, you're speaking to yourself. Yeah. Dear Lisa, your talks and how you share is like taking the most divine bath in the purest Gangas. Thank you for showing up here. Much appreciation. Oh, thank you. It's really beautiful. So Vera says, you even tapped into my story. Yeah. That can happen. Hi, Lisa. When I investigate the emptiness, I cannot find an I am. I can only be the emptiness. Can this be the impersonal I am? There does not appear to be the sense of self. When I look through the body, there is an identification with the body that belongs to me. Awareness and happiness seems to be recognized. Yeah. Yeah, so it seems that people use all these words differently. So sometimes I used to use I am, and maybe still do, as impersonal beingness. And I always feel like the I am or the impersonal beingness is the everything and the love, and the consciousness is the emptiness. Yeah. So that's how I see it. But in the end, you have to find your own words to it, because the way that I speak about it or describe it is like, imagine if I'd never tasted watermelon before and you're trying to describe it to me. It's so, it becomes in a way a very personal experience, but it's impersonal. Yeah, I don't know if that helps. Thank you. Hi, Lisa. When I meditate, I seem to dissolve in emptiness, nothingness, but the love side is not felt. that comes. Sometimes people go more into the emptiness sphere first, and sometimes more into the love. That comes. So it's just keep going. The every emptiness, the love side is more connected to the impersonal being, or the impersonal I am, and the everything in the world. So it's more that way, seemingly. Well, that would be that way. I mean, like it's more the everything side of things. So when that emptiness kind of meets everything, and is not sort of separate from everything. So we normally meet emptiness as it sort of feels like behind everything, but then eventually it sort of becomes in everything, and then they're inseparable, inseparable. Just have to take a moment. Yeah, it's such a strong thing. The body that's speaking, the non-duality, is strong energetically on the body. So Ivan goes on, when Ivan, the character, hears it is the entire dream, it becomes slightly happy. But then when it starts to experience contrast and thinks things it doesn't like, there's resistance and fear. I feel like this is all about acceptance and having courage that this is all you. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's such a different experience to accept the resistance and the fear rather than fighting it. It doesn't mean that you physiologically accept it. Like if there's a lion running towards you, you don't run away. But internally, there's an acceptance that everything is made of God and that your destiny is in God's hands, not your hands. So you're giving everything back to its source. Hi, Lisa. Oh, I lost you. Hi, Lisa. The doer is appearing in and being watched by awareness. If AI says this correct, if I say this correct, and simultaneously the doer is made of and by awareness. So everyone speaks about these in different terminology. Nisargadatta Maharaj often calls consciousness personal awareness and the awareness the big consciousness. So in the end, you have to find your own landscape of words. It's really, there's not right words for it. So the way that I would say it is there is this personal awareness, which is the ability to move for focus. So you can move the focus from here, to your big toe, to your ear, to the outside world. And there's something that's conscious of that. When you're doing witnessing, what you're doing is you're putting the thoughts, you're bringing back the thoughts to the personal awareness. So you're going off in dream, then you're bringing it back to the personal awareness. And then eventually that begins to break down, and then there's a movement back to the big consciousness. And then there's more. Then the big consciousness becomes more and more empty. You can't even call it consciousness anymore. And then often it becomes more and more full. And then it goes back out into everything, a bit like the Big Bang. It's like, and then that's the love side of things. I don't know if that makes sense to you. In the end, you have to navigate your own words by going in and exploring this for yourself. These are all pointers to help. But terminology is so complex, and then we have so many different languages here listening today. And all teachers speak in a different way. Yeah, hopefully that brought clarity to something. Thank you. Hi, Lisa. After spending some time in Buddhist monastery and had several awakening experiences, I'm finding some struggles to integrate back into the worldly life. I noticed when you read a question before that you also had to make an effort to use thinking when someone formulated a complex question. This is an aspect I can relate to. Did you find that there was an integration of using the mind in more complex ways again? Hope I'm making sense. Thank you so much for everything and much love. Yeah, I mean, so since that big shift, there's been 12 years that have transpired, and it's always been very challenging using the mind for long periods. So, yeah, and it continues to be challenging. It seems like it's getting harder and harder, like to, yeah, use the thinking mind. Some people after awakening report a lot of forgetfulness. I presume what's happening, and as it progresses through time, is that you're using maybe different areas of your brain, and maybe the remembrance of yourself like stimulated a particular working area in the brain, which helped thinking and understanding and language. Yeah. So I think it's often reported, and I don't think there's any solution for it. It's just like trust in God. It's so corny, but hopefully you get the sense of what I mean. Like trust that it works out, and not forcing, being open to do intellectual computer work, but trusting in God if that's not coming. And what I mean by God is your essence, trusting the movement of that essence rather than what you think has to happen. I hope that's helpful. For me, I'm still not worked that out, how to live in this complex technological society. I mean, and then be like so wide that, the technology and thinking, it creates very narrow focus. And what happens in awakening is you become super wide open. And it's not the same for everybody as well. I also recognize this. I can hear Miss Khaleesi coming back, someone else that's got the Alzheimer's. Just gonna bark. Oh, what she actually wants is dinner. But yeah, there she goes. She, she's actually, the tummy's rumbling, and she's like, "Feed me, woman. Who do you think you are?" One moment. Come in. Yes, yes, there's no food. It's 6 o'clock, woman. Where is my food? I completely got it. Thank you. Yeah, cool. Hi, Lisa. You mentioned in an interview letting the divine come through the body and letting the body do what it wants to do. Can you elaborate on this? I have no idea what I was talking about in context, but just from those words, I'll have a bash at something, but it might be completely different to what I was talking about. So, yeah, letting the divine comes through is like letting God speak. And that's what we're so scared of, the person. Person is like, the illusory person is trying to fit into an idea of itself. It's so afraid of going deeper and letting the body dance, letting the body speak, and doesn't trust that. It has a story running, if I do that, then something terrible will happen. Because really, what the person is afraid of is becoming redundant. It's kind of like a death when you go so deeply into yourself that the mouth is speaking and nobody's speaking, or the ears are hearing and nobody's hearing, or the hand is moving and nobody is moving. Yeah. So it's insanely beautiful. Yeah. When they say the saying, dance as if nobody's watching, it's dance as if you're not watching. So it's like you stop watching yourself. So the music is moving you, life is moving you. Well, that person put a heart, so maybe I touched on what they were asking. Ivan, can you explain how happiness, freedom, and love is in the happening, not what's happening? In other words, are we the setting space where everything is happening? Is this an experience? I don't know what you mean by that. The true love is who you are as nothing. It's yeah, the nothing is true love. The feeling of love and the manifestation of that is love in the body comes and goes. The feeling of happiness in the body comes and goes. Um, the feeling of freedom in the body comes and goes. But as the nothingness, because that nothingness is not a thing, it's totally free. It's totally expanded and all things. It's non-located. So therefore we call it free. But it's also absolute unconditioned love. It has no conditions on anything. It's so wide and so big and so expansive that it is all. And that is the unconditioned love. And then they manifest. So in that recognition, they manifest in the body as bliss and love, but that comes and goes in intensity. They manifest in the body as freedom, as kindness, as joy, but it comes and goes in intensity. Life is apparently moving you, and then the thoughts come in a millisecond later and say, I did that. Yeah. Or they happen a millisecond before, and it gives the appearance that you did that. So you say, I'm going to move my hand, and then the hand is moved. And then that gives the appearance. But where did that thought come from? And who is thinking that thought? Like, where is that entity which thought that thought? How? Like, the thought comes with the feeling of free will. Where does it come from? How do we think? How do we feel? How do we speak? How do we move? How do we do anything? How? Who? Okay, BC in Zoom, you can unmute yourself now. Oh, I have to put my
Hey,
headset in.
Lisa.
1 second.
Yeah.
What happened? Hmm. Okay, there we are.
Hey, I don't know if
Hey,
I have my question anymore, really.
that happens.
Um, I guess
You never had the question in the first place, so it's like the mind's like,
yeah.
I had a question that's what I'm going to ask, but who?
Yeah, it doesn't seem very relevant.
Yeah, cool.
Um,
Yeah, no worries. You don't have to
yeah.
pop something out just for that sake. It's
No,
okay.
it just feels like the person is like I don't know, it's so ephemeral
Isn't it?
um right now, but like um before this talk I was just like observing like what was happening in the system here, and there's been like this deep sense of like dissatisfaction that arises um, with everything, with everything. Just if I have a drink, or if I play a video game, or if I get my sleep, and I realize like, wow, none of this is like fulfilling. None of this is like getting me anything.
Yeah, what a gift.
Uh,
What a gift. So then in that realization that nothing is giving you what you truly want, you notice that, you notice all those experiences happening, and then you realign with what is it that you truly want.
yeah.
That's a question. What is it you truly want?
Yeah, what is it I truly want? Yeah, I think the answer that pops up that I'm not even coming up with is to go into the heart, or to know what my heart truly wants. But I don't know what I truly want.
Well, I would suggest, although I don't want to put things in your mind and say you've got to investigate for yourself, but I would suggest that what you truly want below everything is freedom. So it's
Yeah.
realigning with that. So
Yeah.
it's like you notice a dissatisfaction, which is really important. You know, the first noble truth in Buddhism is realizing life is suffering. Other Buddhist teachers interpret that as realizing the dissatisfactoriness of everything.
Yeah.
So you realize that, and then there's a lining up with what is it that I truly want? And what it is that I truly want is freedom. So there's a
Yeah.
movement way from that. There's a recognition, a movement way back to the witnessing. And then there is a new thought that comes up. What is it that I truly want? What I truly want is freedom, and realigning with that true desire. And that is your true desire. The mind, though, is always like going off in more superficial ones, but it's then coming back. What I truly want is freedom, always. That's what
Yeah.
every human wants.
Yeah.
So, what a gift your mind is doing at the moment. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
not this, not that,
Nothing. Yeah.
not this, not that.
Yeah. Mm, yeah. And at the same time, like, I don't even know what awakening is anymore. I guess that's
Yeah,
not important. It
yeah,
doesn't
it's not
matter.
important. Yeah, it's just moving your attention back to the moment, back to the
Yeah.
witnessing, and then realigning with what you truly want, and then letting life play out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the mind comes up with all these little dreams, like, oh, I don't even know what this is, or da, 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 da. And then
Mm,
boom, boom,
yeah.
boom. How is it that Nisargadatta calls it? He calls it, yeah, he says things like, yeah, I've forgotten, like total rejection. No, I've forgotten. He says it in really nice ways, like this rejection of the thoughts. But
Yeah.
I've forgotten it now.
Total
I'm never really good
rejection
at
of the
quoting.
thoughts.
It goes.
Yeah. There is like what I do feel is like there's like kind of like a terror when you talk about like not being like involved with like society and humanity anymore, right?
Yeah,
Because it's
it's
like
the same as the fear of death. It's abandonment.
yeah.
So you've got two main, at the bottom of seeking and the bottom of yourself, there's two main ones. There's the avoidance of fear,
Mm,
and then they're attempting to get love. And they're both the
mm,
same thing, actually. The attempting to get love is the not wanting to be abandoned, because if you're abandoned from
yeah.
people and society, you die. And then the other
Yeah.
one is wanting to avoid fear, so wanting to avoid the animal or the others killing you. And so uh, when this gets talked about, you're just activating that terror that if you don't
Mm,
fit in with society, you're going to be abandoned. And it's all illusion because you'll think that you're gonna do this and you're gonna do that, and then you're gonna do this when you're free. And it's all illusion. Your mind is all playing tricks on you. You may be really like regular afterwards. You might fit in better in a way with society. Even though there won't be an involvement in it anymore, you might not be rejecting it or hating on it or hating people so much. So then there might be a easier flow with society. We never know what will manifest, but it's seeing just
yeah.
the illusion of it. The mind goes off into its dreams and it doesn't want to accept the terror. It doesn't want to experience the terror. So it then keeps going off into dream, but it's coming back, putting the attention in the witness and noticing the terror, and the terror will pass because everything passes. When you believe that something is
Mm,
real, then you're trying to avoid it because you're afraid that it won't pass. It's terror. It will come up, it will last for a period, and then it will pass. When you're
yeah.
involved in it, you're kind of sustaining it. You're keeping the story going, you're growing the
Yeah.
terror, you're pushing it into the subconscious, and it's getting bigger. So it's just a coming back. The terror comes and then passes. However,
Mm,
when it all gets too much and too extreme, then it's good to just stop and put on a YouTube video or change things. I'm not talking about
yeah.
staying in PTSD or something.
Have a beer.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not,
Okay.
like yeah, I'm not talking about staying in PTSD. That's a different matter.
Right.
When PTSD is coming, then you'll often get stuck in a loop or OCD thinking, and then it's good to do some sort of tapping or therapeutic process, or just completely changing
Mm,
your mind from the subject.
yeah. Yeah. The OCD is interesting because it still pops up and it just feels like this weird, like
Loop.
energetic. Yeah. Just like this fixation on this energy.
Yeah. So then doing
Yeah.
yoga, putting your mind with something else, and then in the background,
Yeah.
you want to do some therapies on that, which I'm sure you've done. So you learn how to
Yeah.
handle it.
Yeah. I do my best with the therapies. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I really appreciate it. I do lots of like Wim Hof breathing
Oh, yeah.
just to try to like move the energy. It's just sometimes for like hours. Um yeah, yeah. That's all
Yeah.
I got.
Yeah, breathing is great as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
Nice. Well, that is enough for today. Yeah. I see there's one more question in. Yeah, but that's an hour and a half, so that's enough. Khaleesi wants a dinner. She's gonna have a full-blown tantrum soon. Woman, where's the food? Yeah. Yeah, it's so beautiful sharing with you. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I so appreciate you and this. Yes. Yes. And there will be a live stream next weekend, but not the weekend after. Yeah, and just some advertisements. Yeah, I'm doing some talks in Amsterdam in 2 weeks, so you can find that on my website. I think it's nearly full up. So if you want to book tickets, you have to do that quickly. And then there's also a retreat that I do at the end of October. And also there's some people that want to come on the retreats and the events. One in Amsterdam is by donation, but the retreat is a fixed price. They can't afford it. So if there's any people out there that would like to sponsor them, then please fill in a form on the website and yeah, sponsor them. They would much appreciate it. Yes, that is everything. And I really, 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 really wish you everything. Not one or two or three things, but every goddamn thing. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.